once it was uploaded and there was nothing more I could do, it was a big shift where I was like, okay, like the baby is coming. There is nothing I can do. It's uploaded. There is no more tweaking. And this is it. This is it. I wrote it in like 2012, 2013. I was at the height of my songwriting success, writing for Britney Spears and Katy Perry and everybody else. I really got into songwriting just kind of out of necessity. I always wanted to be an artist. It was supposed to be sort of a stepping stone to get me back into my artist stuff. So after I'd had all the success with the songwriting, it was finally time. I got a record deal and I put out American Girl and I made this whole album. And when it came time to do the second single, which was supposed to be Slay originally, I didn't see eye to eye with the label, and so I ended up leaving. I had already had a record deal when I was a teenager, and I was held hostage there for like 6 years. I was miserable, and I was like, I don't want to do that again. I want out. So I left. I had to abandon all of these songs, which was so heartbreaking because it was some of my favorite music I had ever written, but I didn't own the masters. And so there was nothing I could do. So I went independent. I put out the Bombastic EP, and I learned a lot about what it meant to be an indie artist and how valuable my masters are. And I loved having complete creative control. But I was still very sad that I had to abandon this album. I was really heartbroken. And then years went by. I kind of was like, maybe I shouldn't be an artist. Maybe this is, I'm so heartbroken all the time. And then, and I found a forum, or actually a fan of mine that became a friend told me about this forum that was all dedicated to this album from the vault that never saw the light of day. And it was 500 pages long. It's 10 years worth of people talking about these songs, trading the demos. People got tattoos of the lyrics, all of this stuff. And I was like, well, dang, somebody still cares about it. And with this recent resurgence of nostalgia for the sparkly, maximalist 2010s pop music, I was like, maybe it's time. So I pulled a Taylor Swift and I re-recorded all of those songs, and now they're mine. I think that's a big part of my story is kind of being fearless and persevering. And when I found all of these fans, and many of them, by the way, are in Brazil, and they are following my story, they're rooting for me, they're cheering me on. And when I talk to them, because I do live streams, like every time I do a drop, I'll do like a little live stream and people will call in, and I get to talk to my Brazilian fans, and they're always like, it's so inspiring, to have been through this journey with you, the ups, the downs, and you like keep going, and that's so inspiring. And like when I started hearing those stories, it really changed the whole meaning of this album for me. Like it went from being like, me chasing my dreams, my own personal goals and fulfillment, to being like, this is not just for me. This is bigger than me. This is for everyone. Like I want to set an example of what it looks like to fail and get back up, and fail and get back up. And that has become kind of my legacy, whether I like it or not. And I've embraced it because I have talked to the people that it's touched, and that means so much more to me than just like being number one. Like I like having this community experience of like taking the road to Hot City. I was inspired by Taylor Swift because she re-recorded her own masters and started putting these songs out, and I was like, I didn't know if I was allowed to, and so I finally like got the courage to just find the contract and look at it, and there was no re-record clause, so I was allowed to do that, and I was like, oh, well, shit, okay. So I re-recorded them, and now they're mine, and that is like so liberating. So Taylor Swift was a big inspiration to me in that way. And also I think that the music is not linear the way that like time is not linear the way that it used to be in the music industry. It used to be like you put out a song, if it flops within the first month, then you're done and nobody ever hears it again. And now, like, Lizzo's first single like took a year for anybody to discover, and then it blew up and was the biggest thing in the world. And like and then Taylor putting out old songs and people like rediscovering those, and like a whole new generation is hearing them and stuff. Like it's not linear the way that it used to be. And so that kind of also changed my mind about it, where I was like, anything is possible. It's kind of the Wild West, and so that's been really inspiring for me. Yeah, I met Lana Del Rey, who I was a huge fan of. I met her at a party, and she knew who I was, and I was like shocked. I mean, I figured, other artists know who I am just because of my songwriting stuff, but she knew my artist stuff. And she was like, oh my God, like, it's so funny. I just ran into you. Like, look what I was listening to on the way here. And she had Bombastic on her phone. And I was like, oh my God, like what? And she's like, I want to talk to you. Like, can we talk? And I was like, okay. And so she got my number and she called me and she gave me a pep talk that I really needed. And like, this is when I was still, my hair was blonde. I had gone blonde and pink and stuff for the Bombastic thing. The Bombastic thing was great. And then I really lost myself for a minute. And she was like, I watched all your Breaking Bonnie episodes on YouTube and like your lyrics are so good. And she knew all of the deep cuts and everything. And she was like, go back to being a redhead. Like, that's your look. And like, put your music out. Like, people want it. Like, you're too good to not put it out. And I was just like, an angel fell from the sky and told me exactly what I needed to hear. Like, I really needed to hear that. And honestly, I haven't really kept in touch with her since. Like, that was just, it was like God speaking through her, where I was like, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for that. And honestly, that was when I was like, all right, I'm doing this shit. Yeah, like once I went back to red, I was like, oh, I feel like myself again. I really like the pink. It was fun being pink doing the Bombastic thing, but like, I just kind of went blonde. Honestly, I did it for a boy that I was dating, and he ended up being like really awful and like pretty abusive and shitty. And so like I associate that time of like being just blonde with like a dark time. And so going back to red was also kind of like reclaiming my identity and being like, this is who I am, and that's okay. I think that, when you have bright hair and you walk down the street, like you get used to people just looking at you. Not because you're like so hot or anything, but it's just eye-catching, And then when I was blonde, I felt walking down the street, especially in LA, just felt invisible. Like nobody looked at me, nobody noticed me when I walked into a room. And it was like the person that I was with was trying to dim my light and wanted me to not cause so much attention to myself. So I was like, oh, okay, I need to be humbled. I totally lost myself. And so when I went back to red, I was like, oh, it's okay that I like for people to look at me when I walk into a room. There's nothing wrong with that, It was honestly like harder than just writing a new album because I had to find all of the old sessions, and then like I wanted to match everything exactly, and technologically speaking, it was really a headache. But it was nice to be able to finish them because a lot of the songs were not finished. So a lot of the demos that leaked that the fans were listening to were demos. Like I didn't even get that far in recording the album when I left. So it was like all of these half-baked ideas. For instance, Don't Get Mad, Get Famous was just like kind of a little joke song that like played in the back of a YouTube video, and everybody latched onto it and loved it and kept asking for it. So I was like, okay, like not really thinking anyone would care. And then that ended up being one of the biggest streaming songs on YouTube that I put out from this era. And so I ended up, for the album, I did an extended version because I listened to my fans. So I did an extended version and I got a feature on it with Sophie Powers, and I'm really, really stoked about it. It's really fun. So that was kind of an unexpected one that like took on a life of its own. And then some of the other ones, I mean, it's emotional because it's like reading an old journal, it's looking back at a time when I was so hopeful and so ready to like be the next pop star or whatever. And then knowing that like the girl that wrote this was going to be really disappointed, was going to have everything, the rug pulled out from under her, and she still had a long way to go. And so it's really interesting kind of collaborating with my former self. Like, oh, this poor girl has no idea what's coming for her. But it's cool. It's cool. And it's like, and it's fun to kind of step back into that sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed place that I was at back then. And just like believing in myself again. Also stepping into the shoes where I'm like, I'm awesome. Where I was like, I really fucking believed in myself. And like getting back into that headspace was fun. I don't know. It was really cathartic for me, and I think healthy. Yeah. It's funny, songs really do take on a whole new meaning after time. I've definitely written songs in my life, and then years later I'll hear a song I wrote and it'll hit different, where I'm like, oh wow, like I needed to hear that today. So it's like I wrote it for myself before I knew I needed it, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And some of the songs here definitely are that way. Like I think that back then when I wrote this album, my idea of success was very different, because at the time I was having #1 songs all the time. I was like, one of the biggest songwriters in the world at the time. And so my idea of success was just that. If you're not #1, you're not successful. And obviously that has changed a lot for me, where I'm like, okay, like I'm an independent artist. Like the odds of me having a #1 song are very slim. And so like, because I want to keep going and I love what I do, like I need to redefine what that means to me. Like, what is my idea of success? And now my idea of success is really just like enjoying the process. Because if I'm not enjoying myself, then like, why am I doing this at all? And like, if I'm just going to be miserable if I'm not #1, then there's really no point in doing it, because like, again, it's a slim chance that I'm never going to achieve what Katy Perry has. Like, I'm never going to be that. And that used to really break my heart, and I really don't care anymore. I'm really happy to have a loyal fan base and to be able to make the music and the art that I love. And that is my idea of success now, I think for a while I was making success my higher power, and that's a really dangerous place to be, because I have no control over whether or not somebody likes my art. So if all of my validation and my self-worth is tied up in someone else's opinion of me, that's very unhealthy. And so I really had to redefine what it meant to be successful. And in my head, like, it was always like Hot City. Like, I want to make it to Hot City. If I make it to Hot City, then everything's going to be fine. And like Hot City to me, then my paradise was being #1. And now I've realized that it's really about the journey to Hot City. Like, it's not about the destination. It's about this shared experience that I get to have with my fans who are rooting me on and I'm rooting them on. And we're just like on this road trip to Hot City. Yeah, it's really about like enjoying and believing in yourself, and not caught up in what everybody else thinks about you. I mean, that's really kind of the thesis of the whole album, is like, fuck the haters, do you, and like lead by example. Don't get mad, get famous. Yes, I have 2 features that I'm so excited about. The first one is Sophie Powers, who I wrote a song called Obsessed with. She's young, she's super, super talented, great writer, great performer, and she reminds me so much of myself at 19 years old. And I really feel like big sister vibes with her. And so I've been working a lot on her project, and Obsessed is such a smash. Like, I love the song if you haven't heard it. And so I invited her to come and do a verse on Don't Get Mad, Get Famous. So for the extended version, we brought in Sophie Powers, and she killed it with her deadpan rapping. It's so good. It's so perfect. And I think we have a similar kind of story about just like feeling like people are out to get you, sort of like the haters, fuck the haters. That's also like a theme in her own music, so it seemed appropriate to have her on that one. And then the other collaboration is on the only new song on the album, which is called Snatched. And Snatched is an ode to the drag community. I always would say, like, I know that I've made it if someone is dressed as me and dragged. That's how I know I've made it. And so I wanted to write basically an appreciation song for the drag community, and I knew I wanted to have a queen featured on it because it didn't make any sense for me to just be the only one singing on it. So I brought in the great Queen Priyanka, who won the RuPaul's Drag Race in Canada, and she's just incredible. And she brought so much life to the party. And it's funny, like, because all of these songs, except for that one, were already written 10 years ago or whatever, there really wasn't a lot of collaboration on the writing side of things. And so bringing in Priyanka and Sophie, I was like so excited. It just breathed a whole new life into it. And it made me realize like how lonely this experience is. Like, it's really just been me in my head collaborating with my former self. And it was really, really nice to have other brains come in on it and help me write and elevate these songs. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I hope that they are satisfied. I hope that they feel like it was worth 10 years of waiting. I hope that they know that I'm not gonna take a hiatus like I have. And I hope that they feel heard. I hope that they feel seen. Every move that I make on this album, everything that I've done, I have thought about the fans. Every ad lib, every video, every picture, I'm just like, every decision I make on this has been curated for the fans. And so I just hope that they feel seen, and I hope that they know how much they made this happen for me. This would not have happened if it weren't for the fans. I would really, really love to tour. It really kind of depends on the success of the album. You know, if enough people stream it in different parts of the world, then we'll know that there's a demand there. So if Brazil streams this album enough, then I can justify coming out and playing the shows. It's hard being independent because, you know, I pay for everything myself. So we just have to know that there's a demand. So if you guys demand it, I will be there with bells on. Thank you so much to my Brazilian fans for being there through this whole process, for patiently waiting. Even though, you know, American Girl was the first single technically of Hot City, it only took me 10 years to get the rest of the album out, but I hope that it's worth the wait. I love my Brazilian fans, and I really hope to come and visit you and play live for you. And I hope you enjoy all the videos and the whole album. So just keep streaming, and I'm gonna see all your comments and keep responding.